Hello and greetings from Mrs. Girardi. Today we're going to be talking about writing an argumentative essay, which is our first unit together. So grab your whisk and let's get started. Let's talk about the word argumentative. Maybe you've heard this word, maybe somebody has called you argumentative. If somebody calls you argumentative, don't say thank you. When used to describe a person, argumentative means that that person likes to fight and likes to argue. In an argumentative essay, we're not going to be doing any fighting. It's less in your face than the word argumentative when used to describe a person. Let's talk about what it means. So in argumentative writing, there's a logical pattern of thinking that's followed. So the main word when we think of argumentative writing is logic. Compare that to persuasive writing. The job of persuasive writing is to convince someone to do something, to believe something, and so on. You can think of ads and pieces of propaganda as persuasive writing. So we are doing argumentative writing, which focuses on logic, and not persuasive writing, which focuses on convincing someone. In our first paragraph, the introduction, you're going to include some general information about the topic. And in our case, we're going to be talking about Nelson Mandela or Malcolm X and how they were able to effectively bring about social change for their people. You're going to include a thesis statement, which is the main claim of the essay. So a thesis statement answers the question, what are you trying to argue for in this essay? So just to review, introductory paragraph, general information, thesis statement, and there are going to be reasons why. So here are some thesis statement examples that you could use for this essay. Example 1. Nelson Mandela's method of bringing about social change for Black South Africans was effective because reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3. Next example. Malcolm X effectively brought about social change for African Americans because reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3. The last example of a thesis statement is because reason 1, reason 2, and reason 3, Nelson Mandela's method of bringing about social change for Black South Africans was effective. Here's a sample introductory paragraph, and as I'm reading it, I want you to think about where is the general information about the topic located, where's the thesis statement, and where are the 3 reasons why. People have been living in harmony with animals for centuries. However, some animals are more apt to live as pets than others. While dogs and cats are both popular pets in the United States, dogs make better pets than cats because dogs are eager to please their masters, they protect their owners, and they can be trained to help their masters or others as service dogs. So look for general information, thesis statement, and 3 reasons why. After introducing the topic and giving your thesis statement, we're going to move on to reason 1 body paragraph. Your body paragraphs, all 3 of them, will begin with a topic sentence that introduces reason 1, which supports your thesis statement. Then you provide textual evidence that supports reason 1 in the form of a direct quote from the article. The direct quotes need to be cited and parenthetically documented. We're going to talk about that in class. Then you need to explain and interpret the quote, which is the second column of your graphic organizer that came with your article. Then you need to explain why does this matter, the third column of your graphic organizer. Then you will transition to the next paragraph. You think of a way to link reason 1 with reason 2. You can ask yourself the question, how do the 2 reasons relate to each other? So this is where organization and logic come into play. So you may come up with your 3 reasons, but you need to make sure that you organize them in your essay so that they follow a logical pattern and that you're able to make these links to one another so they follow a logical format. Here's a sample body paragraph. I want you to look for the topic sentence, the textual evidence, an explanation and interpretation of the textual evidence, why does it matter, and a transition. 5 different things are going on here. In general, dogs are easier to please their masters, and in turn, people derive joy from owning dogs. As Sandra Kelly states, Dogs are wired to submit to their masters. They hope to win affection and treats for their good behavior. As pets, dogs cannot hunt outside for food, so they depend on their masters to supply them with nutrition. Therefore, dogs behave well and please their masters to obtain food. By behaving well, their masters are more likely to give them affection, thus reinforcing why people like to keep dogs as pets. They are a source of joy and happiness. But dogs do not simply bring joy to humans. They also protect their masters and their masters' families. So look for the topic sentence, textual evidence in the form of a quote, an explanation interpretation of the quote, why does it matter, and a transition to the next body paragraph. And an important part of your body paragraphs are the quotes, the textual evidence. And we do not simply drop a quote down in the middle of your paragraph and leave it stranded. Quotes need to be introduced. So let's look at these two examples. Invictus creates the mood of hopelessness and hopefulness for the reader. Through Henley's selection of words, he creates a pattern in the mood of the play, Smith 12. There is no introduction of the quote, it's just dropped down in the middle of that paragraph. So let's look at how quotes can be introduced and should be introduced. Invictus creates the moods of hopelessness and hopefulness for the reader. William Ernest Henley achieves this through his careful selection of words, which creates a pattern in the mood of the poem. In the second example with yes, William Ernest Henley achieves this through his careful, that's the introduction. I don't just drop the quote down, I introduce it with some material that will come before. This helps situate it within the paragraph. I'm not going to spend too much time here. It's the body paragraph 2 with reason 2 is the same essentially as body paragraph 1, reason 1, but now you need to change your reason 1 to reason 2. So now we're talking about the second reason. We're giving the second piece of textual evidence that supports reason 2. We're going to interpret and explain that quote, tell why that quote matters and that issue matters. Then transition to the next paragraph, think of a way to link reason 2 with the reason 3. Again, you need to be strategic and careful with how you organize your reasons in your paragraphs. And look at that, reason 3, body paragraph. Same thing as 1 and 2. The only thing I want to note that's different about reason 3 body paragraph is that at the end you're not transitioning to the next reason. You need to use some sort of concluding sentence. Then, this is where we're putting in our counterclaims. So this can become 1 paragraph or 2 paragraphs. It depends on your writing. But the first sentence of your counterclaim paragraph or paragraphs tells the reader that there are opposing viewpoints on this issue. Example, while many people agree that he was a great leader in the civil rights movement, others disagree. Or, although he made significant changes for African Americans, Black South Africans, some people suggest that he was a more effective leader in bringing about social change. This shows that there are differing viewpoints on the issue of civil rights leaders. Counterclaim paragraphs. Bring in textual evidence from the other article to show why the other activist was less successful. Quote the other article directly, interpret, explain the quote, and then make your case of why Malcolm X or Nelson Mandela is still the better leader. You will do this 2 times with 2 quotes in your counterclaim. Remember, you are defending your thesis here. To show the difference in opinion, use words like although, even though, however, despite, in contrast. Counterclaim paragraphs. You may find it easier to separate the counterclaim into 2 paragraphs. So in paragraph 1, you may want to state that differing opinions exist. Counterclaim quote number 1, interpretation, explanation, defense of your thesis. Then paragraph 2, counterclaim quote 2, interpretation, explanation, defense of the thesis, and then a concluding sentence on the whole counterclaim business. Finally, concluding paragraph. State why this topic is important, restate your thesis, write 1 or 2 sentences that summarize what you've already argued. So that's reason 1, 2, and 3, your body paragraphs. Concluding paragraph can be quite short. Finally, a title. The purpose of a title is to give readers an idea about the topic of an essay. You need to also remember that your title, should be center aligned. Do not use quotation marks around your title unless you are quoting from a source other than yourself. So if you're coming up with your title yourself, do not use quotation marks. If you like how somebody put something in an article and you want to use that as part of your title, then use quotation marks. Remember to capitalize the first words of the title and all other important words in the title. And there you go. You've written an argumentative essay. Rejoice. We'll talk a lot more about that in class, but I think you have a great idea of how to structure your argumentative essay.